3. Spine-chilling, true roommate horrors. Sinister secrets revealed, cursed encounters exposed. Just imagine this. You're 3 months in, 3 young souls tangled in the chains of college life, all too comfortably settled into the worn embrace of an ancient house that looks like it's been lifted from a vintage postcard. Everything seems perfect until the whispers start. Soft, chilling, a constant echo in the night that seeps into your dreams, shattering any sense of peace you thought you owned. The warmth of laughter is suffocated by shadow. Jessica, Ryan, and Mia, 3 roommates linked by chaos and burnt coffee, quickly discover the hidden heart of their new home, pulsing with history long abandoned. At first, it's all fun, decorating the space with dorm room flair. But it doesn't take long for a nagging dread to creep in with every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights. A cold breath brushes past them when the laughter fades, and suddenly their cozy home feels like a trap. Then came the attic. Dusty, cobwebbed corners hold secrets and long-forgotten memories. One rainy evening, as thunder cracked in the distance, Jessica stumbled upon an old diary tucked beneath a loose floorboard. It felt heavy in her hands, the leather crackling like dry leaves. The room grew darker as the pages turned, revealing sinister tales. The disappearances, the gasps of the townsfolk, the family that vanished without a trace. It was as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for the right moment to unleash its terror. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But there was more. The creeping uneasiness was only compounded by Mia's fixation on their neighbor, the man who seemed to always be nearby, offering help, yet shrouded in an unsettling aura, a fleeting smile that never quite reached his eyes. Each day he appeared like clockwork, his gaze lingering just a bit too long. Just as the walls began to feel more like prison bars than a home, Ryan's class brought him home late one night, where he found himself enveloped in a night thick with dread. Shadows leapt at the edges of his vision, the feeling of being hunted prickling at his back. The air crackled as you turned a corner, and there he was. Only it wasn't. A figure loomed, too familiar and yet too twisted. It was as if nightmares had taken form right there in the street. He dared not move, every sound amplified, every rustle of leaves cruelly mocking him. Paranoia seared through him. As he broke into a run, heart pounding like a frantic drum. Tension grew heavy between the roommates. They were all on edge. Secrets bubbled to the surface like dark stains. The diary's warnings echoed in their minds, and notes started appearing under their doors, cryptic words that sent icy fingers curling around their throats. The trust was fading, each glance filled with suspicion. Who could they rely on when the very walls they called home were steeped in sinister lore? Just when it felt like chaos would consume them all, the stories and shadows converged into one terrifying realization. The source of their fear loomed closer than they had ever imagined, not just within the house, but inside their very souls. Ryan's panic-stricken gaze met Jessica's, and in that moment, an undeniable dread filled the air. It was not just a neighbor lurking in the darkness. Faces from their pasts danced behind their eyes, echoes of who they once were, now twisted into something terrifying. The howling wind clawed at the windows, the eerie whispers crescendoed, sounding dangerously familiar. It threatened to drown them in its embrace and leave nothing but silence in their wake. Had they become bait in a game far bigger than themselves, or would they unravel the secrets before it consumed them alive? The dissonant beat of their hearts became the only sound as night loomed ever closer, entangling them in its sinister hold. It happened on a night when the moon hung low, casting an eerie glow that crept through the dust-laden windows. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved fears, as if the very fabric of their reality was fraying. They huddled together on the threadbare couch, tension simulating a taut rope, each one waiting for the other to break first. "I can't shake this feeling," Mia whispered, her voice barely making it past the knot of dread in her throat. "Like we're being watched." Ryan's grip tightened around the armrest, knuckles turning white. Jessica merely glanced at Mia, her own unease blossoming larger, consuming the space between them. The diary's grim recollections loomed, tales of lives torn asunder, of families shattered in the night, leaving only echoes of their presence within those haunted walls. The clock ticked menacingly, a rhythmic reminder of their situation. Just then, a loud thud echoed from the attic, a sound so foreign and menacing it jarred them from their thoughts. They exchanged glances, eyes wide, breaths hitching. It was an unspoken agreement. Something up there needed to be uncovered. Curiosity battled fear. The house had already snared them, drawing them to its depths. "We should check it out," Ryan suggested, each word wrapping them in dread. Together. With shaky breaths and uncertainty pooling in their guts, they rose in unison. The stairs creaked underfoot, each step a collective heartbeat amplifying into terror. The air turned colder, the atmosphere thick as they reached the top. The attic door loomed before them, warped and ancient, a gateway to the unknown. Mia reached for the door handle but hesitated, her instincts screaming, "Maybe we shouldn't." "Do you think whatever's up there could be connected to the diary? To the neighbor?" Jessica urged, her jaw set with determination. The diary's tales surfaced in their minds like phantoms, each story intertwining with the other, each piercing suspicion feeding the grip of paranoia. Ryan took the lead, pushing the door open. It creaked loudly, resulting in an uneasy symphony that echoed in the small attic space. Darkness pooled in the corners. Old trunks and forgotten memories awaited them. Their flashlight beam flickered, illuminating the dust motes that danced violently in the sparse light. But then, it revealed something that made the warmth of their breath catch and freeze. A figure loomed in the farthest corner of the attic, hunched and skeletal. Its back was turned, but they could feel its presence like a weight they couldn't shake. Was it real, or just a figure of their imagination, a manifestation of their fear? Jessica took a step back, heart racing as a chill washed over her. "Mia, are you seeing this?" Ryan whispered, gripped by terror. Before Mia could respond, a low, raspy voice filled the space, soaked in malice. "You shouldn't have come here." Panic erupted in a heartbeat. They turned and ran, stumbling down the stairs. But the phantom words clung to them, a shroud of despair enveloping their spirits. Each corner felt watching, each shadow stretched into grotesque figures, taunting them as they fled. Once back downstairs, breathless and shaking, they collapsed against the wall. What was that?" Mia gasped, tears brimming as the petrifying terror held them captive. "The neighbor, he knows," Ryan rasped, piecing the thread together in horror. The puzzle of their lives was unraveling, spiraling into a darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. Silence hung heavily until the lights flickered again, dimmed and died. And then a knock rattled at the door, steady, ominous, echoing cold dread straight into their bones. Jessica's mouth went dry. "What do we do now?" As their eyes darted toward the door, a sneaky voice slithered through the shadows. "Are you going to let me in, or do I have to come in myself?" In that instant, the air turned electric and charged with terror. They had entered a game far beyond their understanding, a game they weren't sure whom they were playing against. Would they dare confront the nightmare lurking just beyond the entrance? Or would they face a fate darker than death itself? The knocking grew louder, each rap a cruel reminder of their fragility. Jessica pressed against the wall, her heart thundering like a trapped animal. Ryan moved closer to the door, hesitating just a breath away from allowing whatever terror waited beyond to enter. "Mia, what do we do?" Ryan's voice was barely more than a whisper, trembling. Turning her head, Mia met his gaze, the fear in her eyes only worsening the knot in his stomach. "We can't just stand
Here, we have to—" Another knock echoed, this one followed by a chilling giggle, soft yet menacing, that seeped through the cracks of the door. "I know you're in there." With rising dread, Jessica pieced the memory of the diary's ominous words together with the voice behind the door. What if it's something from the stories? What if it's him? "Who?" Ryan demanded, edging back from the door as if it might snap open with a life of its own. "The neighbor, the one who watched." Mia's voice faltered, a fresh wave of terror coursing through her. The stories of horrors that had unfolded just beyond the walls of this house clung to her, tightening like a noose around her neck. Whoever or whatever was at the door might know the dark secrets they had unearthed. The giggle came again, sharper, pressing against the brittle silence. Then an unexpected voice, deep and soaked in darkness, resonated. "I needed you to come back, to awaken what sleeps inside these walls. And now you will help me." The house seemed to shudder, the very structure pulsing with a malevolent energy. In that moment, silence turned deceptive. The air thickened, and shadows seemed to stretch and twirl, inching closer. Mia abruptly turned, instinctively feeling something behind her, as if the wounded spirits of those lost in the attic were reaching out. "Check the windows!" Ryan shouted. The urgency rang clear, his fear now igniting with anger and the instinct to survive. They rushed across the room. The air swirling between them felt electric, charged with dread as they glanced outside. The moonlight revealed nothing but the darkened street, an emptiness that felt like a trap. But when Jessica looked back, the door had begun to moan, as if responding to an unseen force. It rattled violently, shaking on its hinges, and their final semblance of tranquility shattered. "Get away!" Mia yelled, grabbing Ryan's arm as they pushed back from the door. The air shimmered, and an oppressive silence followed, like the moments before a storm. "Do you feel that?" Ryan's voice was sharp with adrenaline, his body tense as he scanned the room. Before they could respond, the doorknob twisted. They all froze, breaths held tight as the door creaked open a fraction. The darkness behind it seethed, a vortex pulling them toward the abyss. The figure that stood just beyond in shadows took a step forward. "Mia, Ryan, Jessica, come join me." A scream lodged in each throat, choking the air around them. The specter of the neighbor, the one they had feared, stepped into the flickering light. Ghostly eyes glinted in the dark, betraying a hunger that demanded entry. The chill intensified, hands trembling and hearts hammering as dread flooded their veins. They turned their backs to the door as instinct screamed to run, but before they could move, a sinister presence enveloped the room. "Are you going to leave me like this, without a proper welcome?" As the shadows twisted and morphed around them, realization struck like a flash. This was no mere neighbor. They were trapped in a web spun by a being who had waited long for this moment. "What do you want from us?" Mia shouted defiantly, but fear laced her every word. "I want you to stay, forever." the voice growled, and Mia could see glimpses of other faces, lost and hollow, trapped within the depths of the shadows that crept closer. As the darkness enveloped them, the echoes of laughter reached a fever pitch, swirling until it became a cacophony that threatened to drown their screams. In that instant, they understood. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again. And even as terror tightened its grip, a memory surfaced, a fleeting thought that offered a sliver of hope. We need the diary! Just as realization dawned, the world around them began to fade. Would they find the answer hidden in the depths of the shadows, or would the darkness consume them, leaving only whispers in the night? The darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Mia's mind raced, a desperate flurry of thought, trying to recall the diary's every word. It had whispered secrets, riddles that hinted at a way out. But now everything felt jumbled, elusive, like shadows dancing away from the light. "Where is it?" Jessica's voice was shaky, tears brimming in her eyes as panic threatened to overwhelm her. I don't know." Mia's voice cracked, her heart hammering against her ribs as she backed away, her eyes darting from one corner of the room to another. "It was in the attic! It has to be!" The very mention of the attic stirred images of dust and sorrow, the lingering sadness of lost souls echoing in the corridor of her mind. Ryan's jaw clenched, his eyes wide with urgency. "We have to get to it, now!" The specter had shifted closer, its presence nearly palpable, sucking the warmth from the room. "Oh, the attic," it cooed mockingly, the word dripping with malevolence. "So many stories lie within, so many lives and deaths." The shadows danced, forming faces that twisted in anguish, trapped echoes of those lost in the dark. "Let us go!" Mia screamed, voice cracking as she felt something icy brush against her back. The laughter erupted again, filling her ears with a shrilling sound that made her want to claw at her own head. With instinct overpowering her, she yanked open the window. The wind roared inside, but the open air felt like a taunt. The world outside was still and silent. No one to hear them, no one to save them. "Jump!" Ryan shouted suddenly. "We need to escape!" "Are you insane?" Jessica cried, her bravado crumbling under the weight of reality. "There's a ground below!" "And what's waiting in here?" he countered, eyes locked on the deepening shadow that loomed. "Either we jump or—" "Mia!" The neighbor's voice sliced through the chaos, turning her stomach. "Why don't you come back? I'll keep you safe. Forever."
Darkness slithered closer. "Safe?" Mia choked. "This isn't safety." No, it isn't. We can fight." Ryan's determination faltered as the shadows brushed against him, wrapping around his ankles, anchoring him in place. "Mia!" Jessica's voice broke, pulling Mia's attention back. "We can't just—" But it was no use. They were trapped, their breaths shallow, the air thick and suffocating. Every whisper became a hook, every laugh an echo of despair. The door behind them swung wider, bones creaking in frustration, revealing a void that rippled with hunger. "Just get the diary!" Mia screamed. She shot for the attic door, throwing caution to the wind. Fear boiled inside her, matching the terror etched on her friends' faces. "We can do this!" Each step felt like running through tar. The wooden stairs creaked beneath her, every footfall a reminder of the darkness waiting below. She could sense Jessica's presence behind her, Ryan's footsteps hesitant yet determined. In the attic, dust motes floated like spirits suspended in time. The smell of age wrapped around them, thick and forbidding. "Where was it? The diary?" "Help me look," she called, and they fumbled through the crates of old memories, a jumble of photographs and forgotten toys. "Mia!" Jessica's voice trembled. "What if we can't find it? What if it's already too late?" A ripple of dread coursed through Mia. It was already too late for them. The specter called to their fears, digging deep and pulling them into a whirlpool of dread. With each second, shadows crawled up the attic walls, fragments of faces keeping watch, their cries like an orchestra of lost souls. "Found it!" Ryan exclaimed, suddenly from behind a pile of boxes, pulling out the diary, its cover worn but unmistakable. Mia lunged for it, but as her fingers brushed the leather, the room shifted, the air thickening again. Laughter twisted around them, louder, more powerful. "Not yet, my dear. You haven't read the most important part." The pages began to flip open against her will, words glowing with a sinister light, as if the text were alive, breathing, demanding attention. Mia's heart raced, dread settling like lead in her stomach. What awaited her in the pages? What truth would bind them deeper into this nightmare? "Go, Mia, read it," Ryan urged, as shadows crept closer, the overwhelming presence behind them now a dark sea of clawing hands. "What if we don't want to know?" Jessica whispered, terror creeping into her voice. As the words swirled before her eyes, realization dawned, sharp and unmistakable. Understanding the diary was key. Yet, would the knowledge save them, or would it shatter them further? The shadows surged, and before Mia could make sense of the haunting messages, the attic filled with a deafening howl, raw and primal, as they all braced for what would come next. A truth that might break them, or set their fates forever entwined with the darkness. Mia, read it. Would it be salvation or doom? The diary flopped open, pages trembling as an icy wind rushed through the attic. Mia felt the words tug at her, each letter a pull towards something dark and terrible. The shadows pressed in closer, their hands reaching, clawing for the light. She focused on the first line, shivers racing down her spine. "Legacy of the Damned," it read, the words etched in a crimson hue that seemed to shimmer ominously. A sense of dread washed over her, each syllable burrowing deeper into her mind. "To the one who reads this, know that you awaken what lies dormant." "Don't read it! It could be a trap!" Jessica shouted, eyes darting wildly as if they could physically chase the darkness away. But Mia couldn't pull herself away. "I have to know. We have to know." "Please," Ryan cried, the shadowy tendrils wrapping tighter around his legs. Panic danced in his eyes, a mirror to the storm of terror brewing in the attic. "Mia, you're not just reading words, you're calling it forth." With a slow, deliberate slide, the next page turned, revealing a drawing of a house, eerily similar to the one they were trapped in, with lines indicating rooms, but something was wrong. Rooms shifted, echoes of past horrors sketched out in vivid detail. Faces screamed from the walls, their nightmarish expressions burning into Mia's soul. "Mia!" Jessica's voice quivered. A cry echoed behind them as the shadows collided, pulling Ryan deeper into their icy embrace. "We have to get out, now!" The air grew frigid. Mia's thoughts scrambled. She couldn't abandon Ryan, not now. "I can't. Just let me finish this." Then, as if the very fabric of the world warped, the old wood creaked strangely. Over the scraping sounds, a low growl emerged from the depths of the darkness, toiling around them like smoke. "They go mad." The words materialized on the page suddenly, as if the diary echoed back what they feared most. "Madness is the price of knowledge." "No!" Ryan screamed, struggling against the shadows. "We have to leave." "Just a little more," Mia shouted back, her eyes glued to the pages, desperate to uncover whatever truth lay ahead. With one final quaking flick, the room erupted in shadows, a chorus of whispers surrounding them now. You must accept the legacy, or suffer its consequences. The sentence flowed into one long scream, drowning out their terror-filled gasps. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut with impossible force. The world shifted again, sending Jessica crashing into the wall. "Mia!" Her friend's voice cracked with desperation as she slid to the floor, panic lighting her features. The attic began to pulse, the very air around them charging with electricity. It felt alive, breathing, hungry. Mia felt the weight of the diary shifting in her grasp, her fingers itching to turn the next page. Yet each moment stretched thin between reality and the haunting sounds consuming them. "Whatever you do, don't let go," Ryan's voice broke through the chaos, but that warning seemed futile as the shadows drew closer, filling the space with chilling whispers of those long gone, mingled with their own screams of terror. A dark figure began to materialize, shaped by the swirling shadows. A face. Dull eyes boring into her, an almost familiar expression, twisted by despair. It smiled, and for a fleeting moment, Mia thought it was her own reflection staring back at her. Then, louder, the diary gripped her mind, the words shouting out a warning that no one could deny. "Choose a fate, young seer, knowledge or ignorance." The world trembled. Terrified looks were shared among them, and even in this moment of despair, Mia felt the truth pulsing in her veins. What did she want? And just as she gathered her breath to speak, the final page ripped free from the binding, floating above them, glowing with an unearthly light. "Please, Mia, give it back!" Ryan shouted, his voice breaking as the shadows wormed around him. But could she? What if the sacrifice would save them all? What lay behind that final revelation? Would the knowledge offer a way out? Or would it condemn them to stay trapped in this hell forever? "Mia!" Jessica screamed again, pulling at her arms, desperation spilling over. In the silence that followed, the figure smiled wider as the diary beckoned them toward the answer, taunting them with a promise that might shatter everything. Now the real choice awaited. Would she give in to the madness? Or could they escape before it consumed them all? "Mia!" Jessica screamed again, pulling at her arms, desperation spilling over. In the silence that followed, the figure smiled wider as the diary beckoned them toward the answer, taunting them with a promise that might shatter everything. Now the real choice awaited. Would she give in to the madness? Or could they escape before it consumed them all? As the final page hovered before them, glowing ominously in the collapsing dark, Mia felt the choice driving a wedge deep into her heart. Time warped, every second stretched endlessly as she wrestled with the decision. Shadows writhed around her, desperate to keep her from simply letting go. The glow intensified, bathing the attic in an unearthly light. It illuminated Ryan's terrified face, twisted in agony, and Jessica's wide, pleading eyes. The specter loomed closer, its smile widening into a grotesque grin that revealed teeth too sharp and too many, tearing at the edges of Mia's sanity. "Enough!" she shouted, the word tearing free from her throat like a lifeline. The air crackled, filled with tension, as the figure recoiled for a moment. But it was only momentary. The shadows swirled, laughing, feeding off her fear. "Mia, please," Ryan's voice quaked, laced with despair. "Don't let it take you. We can find another way." But what other way was left? The diary throbbed in her hands, alive and pulsating like a living thing, and she knew, deep down, what she had to do. "I can't just ignore it. I need to know." With a trembling breath, she reached out to the glowing page, feeling its warmth seep into her fingertips. It pulled her closer, enchanting and terrifying all at once. What secrets lay hidden within? Would it unlock the door to salvation, or bring forth torment beyond comprehension? Suddenly, an icy grip clamped around her wrist. It was Jessica, her face pale with fear. "Don't do it! We don't know what it means!" But Mia felt the truth beckoning from the page, seductive and slippery. Her fingers twitched, their own will to turn the page almost overwhelming. With a snap, the diary's pages curled back, revealing scrawled texts and horrific images. Glimpses of a past soaked in blood and betrayal. Shadows that had once been people, no, a family, invaded her mind like a flood. The walls around them began to tremble, vibrating in tandem with the horror laid bare before her. "Can you see them?" the faint whispers echoed, drifting through the attic and wrapping around them. They were chosen too. Ryan's face went white, panic bubbling over. "Mia, don't listen. Those are lies, twisted memories." "No!" Mia screamed, feeling the shadows wrap tighter around her, as if they sensed she was close to understanding. "This is real. They want me to see." A phantom cry echoed through the attic, and the temperature plummeted. Jessica shivered beside her, but bravely held fast. "We can fight this, together!" Yet the pull of the page was insatiable. Words began to swirl and shift, rearranging themselves into a narrative that felt all too familiar. The house was never just a home. It was a trap, and now it hungers for you. Mia's heart raced. She shot a glance at the barely visible swirl of shadows, the faces of the doomed staring back at her with hollow eyes, the scream of those who had entered before them like lost souls, wandering and searching for an escape. And then, as recognition dawned upon her, she gasped. Their faces were distorted reflections of her friends, memories stamped with desperation. "Choose wisely, Mia," the dark figure hissed, its voice a distorted echo of her own. With dread pooling in her stomach, she knew this was not just about knowledge, but survival. They were not merely reading history. They were part of it now, condemned to repeat the cycle. "Mia, it can't be the choice," Jessica cried, the feelings of hope draining from her voice. "We can't trust it." "No," Ryan whispered, his own spirit waning. "We can't give in." But Mia was already stepping closer to the page, feeling the otherworldly glow draw her in, a thin line separating the impending doom from the potential of escape, whispering sweetly in her ear. Just one more step. Yet the attic quaked, and a deep rumble filled the air. Something awakened, something old and furious. Shadows surged, clawing at them, and tensions erupted in an agonizing scream echoing through the spiraling darkness. As frightful realization dawned, Mia braced herself, heart pounding as the very walls of their prison strained against the weight of their decision. Would she succumb to the beckoning fate of knowledge wrapped in despair, or was there still a way out, a forgotten path to forge anew? The answer loomed, dark and twisted ahead. Would she defy madness, or would it claim her? Soul as its own forever? And as the shadows suffocated them in an icy grip, the page floated higher, transforming into a void of nightmares. The one final revelation awaited. What horrors, what truths lay hidden in the deep? With a pulse of terror, the attic screamed again, alive with the sound of their choices echoing through the silence. What lay in wait as darkness surged? Would they stand united against the coming storm, or would they fracture, each choosing their own ending? The shadows writhed, a living tapestry of dread, clawing at the edges of Mia's perception. She hesitated, teetering on the brink of an abyss where knowledge and horror collided. The glowing page pulsed like a heartbeat, calling her with an urgency she couldn't ignore. "Mia!" Ryan's voice broke through her fog, frantic and raw. "Don't! We can get out of here! Just step back!" But the grip of the diary tightened around her mind, twisting her thoughts into knots she couldn't untangle. Whispers flooded the attic again, chilling her bones. "Join us. Remember." Images flashed in her mind, those lost faces twisted in anguish, echoes of despair swirling in the air. They were all intertwined in this dark legacy, trapped by their desire to uncover the truth. She could feel the weight of their suffering wrapping around her like a thick, oily mist. Jessica squeezed Mia's other arm, her grip trembling. "Fight it! Don't let it take you! It wants to break you!" The entity within the diary hissed, a sound that slithered into her ears and electrified her veins. "You are chosen, Mia. This is your destiny, to know the depths of your own darkness." Spitting out the words felt impossible as dread pooled in her stomach. The attic trembled under the weight of history. No, a curse, steeped in bloodshed and betrayal. Mia shut her eyes, but the darkness only grew thicker, swirling with memories that weren't hers. A voice seeped through the chaos, whispering promises layered with madness. "You'll never leave this house, not without knowing." "Mia!" Ryan's cry was a lifeline, yanking her back from the precipice. "You're stronger than this. Remember who you are." "Ryan, But her voice faltered as images from the page lashed through her, a nightmare reel showing her friends in torment. Ryan bound in shadows, Jessica screaming, their hands stretched out, pleading. Mia gasped, the horror of it all flooding her senses. They were at the mercy of a force older than time itself, and even her curiosity felt like a betrayal now. But she felt it too, the magnetic pull of knowledge intertwined with insanity. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Then the diary began to tremble violently, pages tearing loose in a windless tempest. "Look! Know what they've hidden!" shrieked the specter, its laughter like shards of glass piercing through the thick air. Mia stumbled backward, unable to pull her eyes away from the chaotic flutter of the pages. Each flutter was a fleeting life, a desperate scream for help echoing through the dark recesses of their world. Heart pounding against her ribcage like a bird trapped in a cage, she turned again to her friends. "Ryan! Jess! I'm scared!" The tears fell unbidden, cutting through her resolve. I don't want to choose." The air crackled as if the house itself was listening, brewing something sinister, something ominous. Then came that whisper again, stronger, louder, echoing with horrible clarity. "Choose or be chosen." Jessica's eyes widened in terror as the ground beneath them quaked, a rattling that threatened to swallow them whole. "No! This is a trap!" she shouted, scrambling back, pulling Mia with her. "We have to leave now!" But how could they leave when the shadows surged forward, darkness pulling at their ankles like hands eager to drag them into the void? Mia felt it, an icy grip, a sudden cold, robbing her of breath. The walls were closing in, and she lunged desperately at the diary, torn between the truth it promised and the horrors creeping closer. In that moment, as if time had fragmented, the shadows recoiled slightly, faces shifting in the smoky haze, simmering with a hunger no one could understand. "You can't escape what is already woven into your fate." Mia's pulse quickened, another choice beckoning, dangerous and dark. With a defiant yell, she ripped her attention from the page. "No, I refuse to play your game." The figure dissolved into a maelstrom of shadows, howls of laughter swirling as the space around them erupted in chaos. The shadows lunged, and Jessica screamed, while Ryan, frozen in fear, could barely breathe. Would they scramble out of the wreckage of their own making, or would they be swallowed whole by the darkness that lingered like a predator sizing them up? With desperation echoing in her heart, Mia felt something surge within, a flicker of resolve. They had to fight back. As the light from the page waned, a new sound echoed through the attic, a low growl, deep and guttural, building in intensity. The question hung in the air, draped in peril. What if darkness was merely a doorway to an even greater nightmare? The attic began to spin as shadows danced wild, and the truth clawed its way up the walls, ready to unveil horrors that would shake their very souls. What awaited them would test their bond, their wills, and force them to confront the twisted origins of their own fears. Mia felt the growl vibrating through her chest, as if the house itself was an angry beast ready to unleash its fury. The air thickened, laced with palpable dread. She looked around, and the once familiar attic now appeared monstrous, warping under the weight of a sinister presence that hung over them, squeezing tighter with every passing second. "Run!" Ryan shouted, breaking the spell of terror that wrapped around them. He grabbed Mia's wrist, yanking her toward the door. But the shadows surged, clawing at their legs, becoming a living trap that sought
pull them back into the depths of despair. "Jess, move!" Mia screamed. But Jessica seemed frozen, her eyes wide, reflecting swirling darkness as if she were in a trance. "Mia, don't leave me!" Jessica cried. But even in panic she hesitated, indecision raging in her heart. Mia couldn't afford that. She couldn't let her friends succumb to the whispers, the allure of knowledge cloaked in madness. Without thinking, Mia lunged back toward her friend. Her heart raced, threatening to explode. "We can't stay! We have to go, now!" The shadows hissed around them, eager to ensnare, and each second felt like a lifetime. With renewed urgency, Ryan wrapped both arms around Jessica, pulling her toward the door that now felt impossibly far. Light flickered from the staircase, a promise of safety beyond the chaos. Mia could practically taste it. "Together," Ryan urged. But the shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, faces of prior victims glaring at them with hollow eyes, mouths echoing their anguish. "Remember us," they echoed. "You are like us now." "No!" Mia screamed, shaking her head violently. "We are not like you." Surging with adrenaline, Mia grabbed Jessica's hand, drawing her out of the suffocating grip of fear. They stumbled toward the door, but as they reached it, the handle jolted, the wood splintering with a loud crack, like a spine breaking under pressure. The growl intensified, a terrifying chorus rising in the dim light, and before they could react, the door swung open. An icy wind ripped through the attic, pulling with it weightless, flickering remnants of darkness, faces twisted in horror. Mia felt the cold seep into her bones. They dashed through the door, Ryan in the lead, pulling Mia and Jessica behind him as they fled down the stairs. But as they descended, the whispers transformed into a cacophony of screams, filling the narrow space, drowning out their thoughts. Each step felt like a descent into hell, a tug-of-war between hope and despair. Suddenly, the stairs beneath them groaned ominously, a low rumble indicating their foundation was shaking. The shadows weren't defeated. They followed, slinking down the steps, claws scratching against wood. It was as if the house itself was alive, recovering from the attack, summoning its power to reclaim its chosen. "What do we do?" Jessica gasped, panting hard, her earlier strength appearing small and diminished. Mia's mind raced as flashes of images from the diary swirled in her head. Whispers beckoned her to look back, to understand,
But was it understanding or another trap? "We have to reach the front door. Don't look back." Something shifted behind them, a rush of darkness, a wall of it pressed close, before it suddenly receded. A figure emerged, bold yet shrouded in shadows. "You cannot leave," it asserted, voice laced with chilling familiarity. "Who are you?" Mia stammered, fear quaking her voice. The figure stepped closer, revealing features twisted and familiar. Eyes that held an ancient sorrow. A recognition struck her, chilling her spine. "I was once like you, Mia. Now you must face your truth or become part of the darkness." The weight of the truth pressed down. Would they escape this nightmare, or were they destined to be another whisper in the house's dark history? With a jolt, Mia turned to the others, adrenaline surging once more. "We need to keep moving!" But as they raced toward the front door, she could feel the pull of the house. It was a living thing, hungry and vengeful. Behind them, the shadows were drawing closer, their rush like a tide about to swallow them whole. "It's not just about survival, Mia. It's about understanding," the figure called, laughter trailing like a curse. Mia glanced back one last time, her heart pounding in terror and defiance. Slicing pain through her chest, she pressed onward, the door looming ahead. Would they be able to break free, or was the house simply tightening its grip, waiting for the opportune moment to reveal the ultimate horror they were meant to uncover? As fear clawed at her peace, she couldn't shake the feeling that something far more sinister was waiting just out of sight. The front door loomed closer, a desperate beacon against the encroaching shadows. Each step felt heavier, like their feet were weighed down by unseen chains. Mia shot a glance back, her stomach twisting. The figure had vanished, but the whispers were growing louder, shriller. The house, its wooden structure creaked under the pressure of something more than just fear. It boomed, pulsed, a living entity intent on holding them captive. "Don't look, just go," Ryan shouted, urgency sharpening his voice. Mia felt the hot breath of the darkness give chase, its icy tendrils reaching for them. "Keep running," she cried, adrenaline raw in her throat. Jessica stumbled, nearly falling as the wailing shadows lashed out. "Hold on to me," Ryan yelled, pulling Jessica upright as they continued their frantic flight. The front door seemed to tease them, just out of reach, yet promising escape, a light at the end of an endless tunnel. One last push, Mia thought. If they made it outside, maybe they could silence the house's wrath. She lunged forward, desperate for freedom. But then it happened. An ear-splitting crack echoed, reverberating through the air like thunder. The door shuddered violently, as if resisting their escape. They skidded to a halt, tension gripping them tight. "No!" Mia gasped, the light from outside flickering like a dying flame. "No, no, no!" Before they could react, the door buckled, its wood splintering under a force unseen. Dark shapes began to surge from the cracks, twisting and writhing, pouring from the very walls, as if the house were shedding its skin. Shapes that resembled the faces of the lost, the damned. Theirs was a race against time and inevitability. "Turn back!" Jessica cried, her voice thick with panic. "Mia!" Ryan yelled, but the shadows had a grip on his voice, pulling it into the dark. "Run!" She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Her instinct took over as she surged forward. "Get out!" In a heart-stopping moment, she seized the handle with both hands and yanked, pouring every ounce of strength into it. The door burst open with a howl, a blast of wind charging inside from the night outside. They were showered with cold air, chaotic and sweet, freedom flavored with terror. Gasping, they tumbled over the threshold, but before they could regain their bearings, a weighty presence slammed against them, dragging them back. The shadows clawed at their legs, dragging them toward the threshold. "No, not again!" Ryan shouted as he pulled Mia back, his grip slipping. Mia's heart raced as she locked eyes with Jessica. The shadows seemed to gather themselves into a shape, looming close, their sound rising and falling like a monstrous wave. "What now?" she yelled, looking frantically for an exit. "Forward," Ryan urged. "We have to reach the car." With renewed resolve, they pressed forward into the night, the cold air biting their skin. But as they ran, the whispers shifted into a sound more sinister, laughter, chilling and echoing around them. The trees lining the driveway seemed alive, their branches grasping, twisting as they passed. "Just past the car," Mia breathed, her legs screaming. And weirdly, in that moment, time felt disjointed, heavy, as if the house had somehow extended its reach into the woods, each step multiplying the distance to freedom. Then they paused. Out of breath, Mia turned her head slightly. What she saw turned her blood to ice. Shapes hovered in the darkness just beyond the edge of the driveway, a host of figures, spectral and drenched in sorrow. They reached out, summoning phantom memories. Mia saw faces she should have recognized, but they floated away as soon as she grasped the shapes. "Who?" she whispered, knowing she didn't want the answer. Ryan's eyes widened. "We need to keep going. They'll drag us back." Just then, Jessica froze. "Mia, look!" And there it was, painting the horizon just past the trees, a faint glow, pulsating like a heartbeat. A familiar light beckoned, a light Mia thought she'd only dreamt of. "Is that—" "I think it's the house's light. We can't go back," Jessica hissed. But the glimmers pulled at Mia, curiously familiar. What was waiting there? Did the light hold salvation, or was it a final trap, a portal to something much worse? A jolt of fear sank deep. What if it was not just an escape, but a doorway to the very truth they sought to outrun? "We move now," Ryan growled, pulling Mia forward as they dashed toward the car, desperate to escape the dark's hungry grasp, knowing fully well the truth awaited them beyond the light. Just as they reached the vehicle, the laughter crescendoed, an ominous, echoing promise that they wouldn't leave without confronting their nightmare. Mia took a deep breath, adrenaline surging, but dread coiled tighter. As they whipped around to flee, the question loomed overhead. Would stepping into the light lead them to safety, or something far more horrific? Mia fumbled with the car keys, hands trembling as the icy fingers of terror clawed at her back. Ryan and Jessica stood vigilant, eyes darting toward the flickering shadows closing in from either side. They could feel it, the weight of the house behind them, a malevolent force screaming that their escape was premature. Come on, Mia whispered, her heart hammering relentlessly. The keys slipped from her sweaty grip, clattering against the ground like morbid laughter. Time felt stretched, a traitorous coil dragging on as Mia scrambled to retrieve them. The mirage of safety shimmered ahead, but she knew better. "Behind you!" Ryan yelped, his voice a mix of fear and urgency. The shadows surged, dark tendrils racing forward, as if the house were determined to reclaim what it had lost. "Get in!" Jessica shouted, finally breaking through the fog of panic. Mia caught Ryan's frantic gaze. Flickers of uncertainty sparked within the shifting shadows. They couldn't hesitate now, not with freedom just a heartbeat away. Mia snatched the keys, pulled open the car door, and jumped inside, her body instinctively curling into itself as the chill of the night kissed her skin. Ryan dove in behind her, slamming the door shut with a thud that resonated through the stillness. "Start the engine," he urged, but the weight of despair lingered, leaching warmth from their lives. Mia inserted the key. The engine sputtered, caught in the throes of desperation. Come on!
Panic laced her voice as shadows pressed against the windows, twisting into grotesque faces that seemed alive in their anguish. The car felt like a flimsy barrier, the darkness clawing persistently, hell-bent on pulling them back into its maw. "Please," Jessica's voice cracked, a perfect echo of their broken hearts. "Just start!" "One more time!" Ryan shouted, pushing her knuckles against the dashboard, eyes wide with barely contained fury. Mia turned the key again, and the engine roared to life, a growl of defiance against the flood of shadows curling around them. "Yes," she gasped, throwing the car into reverse. As they lurched backward, the night around them distorted, blurred by the mist entwining with shadows creeping closer. The beings stood at the fringes of their vision, taunts hiding behind cries woven into the breeze. "Drive! Drive!" Ryan urged, his voice filled with an urgency that unraveled the tension in the air. Mia slammed the gear shifting to drive, expelling a small squeal of tires against gravel as she slammed on the accelerator. The car shot forward with a burst of speed, the house blurring and distorting in the rearview mirror. Yet the road stretched long ahead, rough and treacherous. Flickers of the familiar darkness danced behind them, a trail of hatred tracing their path. Suddenly, laughter erupted from the shadows, ringing in their ears as if the house had released every anguished soul it had contained. "You can't escape your fate." Mia instinctively glanced back, but Ryan's hand shot out. "Don't look! Keep going!" The night seemed thickening around them, the walls of the house growing taller in their peripheral vision. "There's no going back," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling as fear clawed at her throat. "We won't die there. We have to stay alive." Surge after surge of adrenaline propelled her forward, the speedometer climbing. Trees whipped against the car as they barreled down the drive, the haunting giggles echoing behind them. But as the headlights pierced through the darkness, the house slowly faded. The looming sense of dread began to slip away, replaced with a feeling of distant, glimmering hope. Until they saw it. A figure emerged from the edge of the tree line. The silhouette of the neighbor, his smile stretched too wide, dark eyes glinting under the cold light of the moon. Time stilled. The car screeched to a halt, hearts pounding in syncopation with the terror that flooded their veins. "Stop!" the figure commanded, his voice rasping through the air, a sound sinister and intoxicating at once. "You can't leave. This is where you belong." "No!" Mia screamed, revving the engine, panic straining her voice. "We won't go back to that house. You can't take us." "Let him go!" Ryan shouted, fear igniting anger. "We don't belong to you, not anymore." But the figure only stepped closer, shadows pooling at his feet, his gaze piercing and dark. "You can't escape the darkness inside you. You will always be a part of this cursed legacy." Mia hammered down the accelerator, fighting against the instinct to yield to terror. The car lunged forward, the figure growing smaller in the rearview mirror. With a gasp, they plunged fully into the night, their laughter and cries dissipating as the space between them widened. "Is it over?" Jessica breathed, fear unable to let go of its grip entirely. As they tore down the winding road, glimmers of dawn emerged at the horizon, and the weight of the house slowly lifted from their shoulders. Silence stretched around them, and for the first time they breathed in deeply, feeling the air fill their lungs free from the clamor of shadows. But deep inside, Mia felt a lingering echo, a reminder that they had opened a door, one that could never be fully closed. Faces danced in the corners of her mind, calling from the darkness they had left behind. "Together we faced it," Jessica whispered, looking at each of them, uncertainty giving way to determination. "Together," Ryan affirmed, and for a moment they believed in the strength of their bond. As dawn broke through the horizon, painting the sky a tentative warm gold, Mia promised silently that they would not forget. They had faced the abyss and stepped back.
They would take the lives they had reclaimed and forge their own destinies, one heartbeat at a time, guiding each other through the shadows that still lingered around. But in the back of her mind, a chill whispered, a promise of what awaited should they ever grow too curious again. The knowledge thrummed, binding them closer to their past. No matter how far they ran, the shadows would always remain, just outside their view, hidden but waiting. As they drove toward the sunrise, unity forged against the darkness behind them. They realized some legacies were never truly left behind. They just lingered, ready to surface again when least expected. And so they pressed on, newly awakened to the fragile war between light and dark, a battle that never truly ended, always shifting in the shadows of a haunted house. Don't wait another second. If you enjoyed this bone-chilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a huge difference. I want to see your reactions, so flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild ending. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this terrifying tale. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. Show your commitment now.